The church teaches that there are two ways that we can sin. I'm not talking about the two types of sin, venial sins and mortal sins. I'm talking about two ways we can sin. We can sin either by doing what we should not do or by not doing what we should do. The first is called a sin of commission and is a bad act committed, like lying or stealing. The second is called a sin of omission, and it is a good act that is omitted, like failing to help someone in need or neglecting your responsibilities as a parent. As Catholics, we need to be concerned about both types of sin. It's not enough simply to do no harm. We are also required to do good whenever we can. This is so important, in fact, that it is built right into our penitential rite that we just said a few minutes ago. I confess to Almighty God and to you, my brothers and sisters, that I have greatly sinned in my thoughts and in my words, in what I have done and in what I have failed to do, through my most grievous fault. Our gospel reading today is about sin of omission. A sin of omission. This is the well-known parable of the talents. And it's another one of the hard teachings of Jesus. It teaches us that laziness, or sloth, in the church term, is not just a character defect. It's not just a character defect, it's a serious sin of omission that actually can lead us to hell. When we hear the word talent these days, we think of a special ability that a person has, like a musical talent or a vocal talent, or, we have shows like America's Got Talent or England's Got Talent. And so we think of these special, like, musical or artistic gifts that people have. But in biblical times, a talent was a measure of money. And by the way, that understanding of talent, that is the sort of modern understanding, came into the English language through this parable, by the way. But in biblical times, a talent was a measure of money. It had nothing to do with abilities or special gifts. In Jesus' day, a talent was worth about 15 years of wages for a day laborer. The precise value is less important than the fact that was a very large sum of money. So, what a working person could earn in 15 years was approximately the value of a talent. So in this story, we see that even the man who received one talent received a substantial amount of money, a substantial treasure. And the man who received 5 talents received treasure equal to 75 years of wages. And here are some important details I want to point out about the parable, because they factor into the way we interpret it and analyze it. The first detail is that all of the property belonged to the master, and he entrusted it. It says he entrusted it to his 3 servants. So it's clear that he intended to make them stewards or trustees of his property. These were not gifts. These were not sums of money that they could do whatever they wanted to do with. They were trustees. Secondly, when he departed, the master gave no instructions whatsoever as what he expected them to do with it. It's like, imagine your boss is going on a big journey, and before he leaves, he comes into your office, and he's got this big sack of gold coins, and he lays it on your desk and says, "See ya. Take care of this." So this was a test. This was a character test of his 3 servants. Third, we see that the master divided the property among the 3 servants, each according to his ability. That's important. That's not random. That means that none of the servants was responsible for a greater value or a greater treasure than he could realistically handle. So that meant that they, based on what the master gave them, they had no excuses. It's not like, oh, you gave me too much. I didn't know what to do with it. It's like, no, he gave it according to their ability. So he knew what he was doing when he gave them the treasures. And that means that each servant was fully culpable for whatever happened to the talents given him. Now, we see that servants number 1 and number 2 decided to put the money to work on behalf of their master. They put it to work. They invested it somehow. Doesn't say how. But it says that they earned a return exactly equal to what they had been given. So the one who had given 5 earned 5. The one who had given 2 earned 2. It was 100% return on investment. ROI. 100% return on investment for the master. Nevertheless, the 2 servants, 1 and 2, were praised and rewarded equally. The one who had 5 and ended with 10 didn't get a higher amount of praise than the one who was given 2 and returned 4. Each one heard these words, these sweet words from the master. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. Those are the words we all want to hear, don't we? Now let's talk about servant number 3, because he's interesting. He also was given a share equal to his ability. The master gave him 1, but knew that was equal to his ability. And he returned it exactly as it was given to him. He didn't steal it. He didn't use it for his own purposes. He didn't misuse it. He didn't gamble it away. He didn't do anything with it. He buried it, and when it was time the master was back, he gave it right back to him. So what was the problem? A big problem. What he did no active sin, but he did a passive sin, a sin of omission. A sin of omission. Because the master was expecting him to do what the other 2 did. And instead of doing that, he buried it, saying it was out of fear. Was it really out of fear? Was it really out of fear? Well, we have a clue in the next verse. Because the master called him a wicked and slothful servant, a wicked and lazy servant. So in this passage, Jesus is equating laziness, slothfulness with wickedness. So that's the sin of omission. And the master said, cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's an image of hell. So that's where servant number 3 went. Sins of omission, according to Jesus, the Prince of Peace, can wind us up in hell. I told you it was a hard teaching. So what do we learn from this parable? Well, number 1, we learn that God expects us to do something with the gifts and blessings he's entrusted to us. And if we don't, we're not just lazy. It's not just a character defect. We're not just lazy, but we're wicked. And he will judge us harshly. Laziness, or sloth, as it's called in the Catechism, is one of the 7 deadly sins. It's a deadly sin. Why is it deadly? Because it leads to spiritual death. It kills your spirit, it kills your character, and it can even sometimes lead to physical death. And the Bible has a lot to say about laziness. Now, this is the parable of the talents. But here are some other scriptures to think about. Many of them are from Proverbs. Proverbs talks a lot about laziness. Proverbs 6 says, "A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man." Proverbs 20 says, "Do not love sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will be satisfied with bread." And in 2 Thessalonians 3, Paul says, "If anyone will not work, neither shall he eat." Well, those are just some scriptures. The point is that God has given each of us abilities and blessings and expects us to use them. Every one of us is uniquely and abundantly blessed and graced with gifts and talents of every variety. Every variety. And God expects us to do something with that. St. Paul wrote, "We are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." So not only did God give you a unique set of abilities and talents and intelligence, strength, whatever it is, but he gave that to you for the sake of you doing good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. See, if we do not fulfill our God-given calling, we're letting God down. Who's going to do it if we don't? And on Judgment Day, we will have to answer for it. Because the abilities and blessings God has given to us are not our own property to use or not to use. This is the point. In the modern world, actually, it's not just the modern world, it's fallen man. Fallen man tends to believe that whatever strengths, abilities, gifts he has or she has is hers, or his, by virtue of how great they are. You know, it's like, I'm so smart. No. God gave you that intelligence. God gave you that strength. God gave you that administrative skill. God gave you that musical skill. And he did it for a purpose. Not to serve yourself, but to serve the community, to serve the saints, to build the church. So God expects us to use them and not just bury them like servant number 3 did. In fact, being lazy with the gifts and talents God has entrusted us with is a sin of omission that can lead us straight to hell. The good news is that when God calls us to account for what we have done with the gifts and the talents he's entrusted to us, he's not going to compare us to anyone else. That's another point in this passage that's important. Don't overlook it. God won't compare me to St. Peter or to Pope John Paul II, or even, to Heather in my singing ability. God did not give me those gifts. He gave me other gifts. But God will hold me accountable to the gifts, the talents he's given me. Did I use them, or did I squander them? Or did I just lazily not bother with them and not do anything with it? Did I use the abilities he gave me to advance his kingdom, or did I commit the sin of omission by failing to use the gifts, the blessings, the talents he gave me to use? Now, if I did, and to the extent that I did, I can look forward to hearing those beautiful words, "Well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your master." If I did not use the gifts and talents he gave me to the best of my ability, I can look forward to unhappiness, to anger, and to gnashing of teeth. My teeth. And what's true for me is true for you too. It's true for all of us, right? So, what are your unique and God-given talents? Think about that. Take it seriously. And how can you offer them as a gift? A gift of thanksgiving to God who gave them to you. A gift to the church. Whatever the gifts and graces God has given to you, you better make good use of them, because God has invested a lot into each one of us. And he expects a return on his investment. This is the lesson of the parable of the talents.